In Panama, the second preparatory meeting for a unified dialogue table was held on Thursday. Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi resigned after efforts to bring together the country's fractious party, kicking off a snap election campaign. Sri Lanka's six-time Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe was sworn in as president of the South Asian nation ahead of forming a unity government. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. In Panama, the second preparatory meeting for the unified dialogue table was held on Thursday. The second meeting began with a call for an end to repression made by the Archbishop of Panama and the lead mediator, Monsignor José Domingo Ulloa. Monsignor Ulloa asked President Laurentino Cortizo to commit to avoiding confrontation between the police and the demonstrators. The unified table, which is made up by representatives of the Alianza Pueblo Unido por la Vida, ANADEPO, and the rural poor communities, agreed on an 8-point agenda to be discussed with the government on Thursday.
As the motto reads, without struggle, there is no victory. And we have come together to work for the good of Panama, for the good and welfare of all those who are waiting for an answer. And today we have worked on all those issues that afflict our citizens. Tomorrow we will get together as of 8 a.m. to finalize details. And in the afternoon we will work with the government's table, so that we may deliver the answers our Panamanian citizens are expecting.
And now we have more topics. Mercosur will not give the floor to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky during their summit being held this Thursday in the Paraguayan city of Luque. Paraguay's Vice Minister of Economic Affairs and Integration, Raúl Cano Ricciardi, said there was no consensus among the member countries.
Bases his decision on consensus. There was no consensus for that address to take place. Therefore, the Ukrainian counterpart has already been informed that under these circumstances, there are no conditions for the President of Ukraine to address Mercosur.
In Colombia, the Congress begins the legislative term 2022-2026 with a historic majority composed of alternative, progressive, and left-wing movements in both chambers. The ceremony makes official 285 members of Congress, divided into 187 senators and 107 representatives to the chamber, of which the coalition of the Historical Pact will occupy the largest number of seats, which guarantees support for the policies of President-elect Gustavo Petro. Senator Roy Barreras will preside over the parliamentary body during the next year, in which among the legislative priorities are the revision of the 2023 budget and the tax reform. An important Spanish newspaper has denounced that a Spanish ultra-right-wing party might have used public funds to finance a documentary against the former Brazilian president and the current presidential candidate Luis Inácio Lula da Silva. According to El País journal, the foundation Dissent, associated to the Vox party, destined a subsidy of the Ministry of Culture and Sports to finance a documentary against the Sao Paulo Forum, a platform that groups left-wing Latin American parties. According to the press release, the documentary, short of 30 minutes, alternates historical images with interviews to the Vox leaders and to Eduardo Bolsonaro, the son of the current Brazilian president and deputy for Sao Paulo, attacking his father's main rival of the upcoming elections of October 2nd, which is the former president Luis Inácio Lula da Silva. Former Brazilian President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva visited his hometown in the state of Pernambuco, where he talked with thousands of supporters. Our correspondent in Brazil, Brian Mier, with the details.
Brazil's former President Lula is leading in all polls for this year's presidential elections. This week he started a two-day tour of Pernambuco state, on the land he was born in outside of the hill town of Garanhuns, where his cousins have restored his mother's old house.
It's symbolically powerful for us that Lula is here near Granana's, interconnecting with his roots and his origins as a working-class man who came from Pernambuco in Northeast.
After visiting with dozens of his cousins, nieces, and nephews, Lula went to an outdoor arena and addressed a crowd of thousands who'd come out to see their hometown's most famous former resident.
We face hardships as Northeasterners. We know the prejudice and xenophobia that we face. Lula is here today to show that he can make Brazil better, and we are hoping that our future President Lula will defend life and the working class.
With tens of millions of Brazilians now facing food insecurity due to the Bolsonaro administration's disastrous neoliberal economic policies, Lula took advantage of his short time back in the land of his childhood to remind everyone of the injustice of hunger.
How can some people have everything and others have nothing? How can one person have 10 pieces of bread a day and another person go 10 days without having a piece of bread? Why, in the country which is the world's largest producer of animal protein, do people have to go to the butchers and buy bones, chicken carcasses, chicken feet, and chicken necks?
Former President Lula will spend Wednesday in pre-campaign events in Recife. Brian Meir, TeleSUR, Garanhuns.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. California and Oregon states are calling on the U.S. federal government to declare a public emergency as a result of the monkeypox outbreak in the country. Both states emphasize outreach strategies for communities most at risk, while the U.S. health officials announced on Friday that more than 110,000 doses of monkeypox vaccines are on the way to the states. The government officials acknowledge that vaccine supply hasn't been keeping up with the demand seen in New York, California, and some other places. The states of New York, California, Florida, and Illinois are the hardest hit areas in the country, with more than 200 reported cases as of July 20th. Monkeypox is endemic in parts of Africa and does not usually spread easily among people. But this year, more than 12,000 cases have been reported in countries that historically don't see the disease.
Today we're demanding a stronger action on monkeypox. The good news about monkeypox, is, if there is any at all, is that it is a familiar threat. We have tests and we have vaccines. Sadly, despite 2 years of experience with COVID, our response to monkeypox has been maddeningly slow. Therefore, I have sent a letter to Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra asking him to declare a public emergency on monkeypox.
On Thursday, the Italian executive has announced that the parliament will be dissolved, which implies an early call for elections. The Italian head of state will have to open a process according to the rules of a parliamentary democracy, which many observers believe will lead to early elections in the first or second weekend of October. Prime Minister Mario Draghi's resignation comes after the three partners in his coalition government, Silvio Berlusconi's conservative Forza Italia, Matteo Salvini's far-right League, and Giuseppe Conte's populist Five-Star Movement, withdrew their support for him in a confidence motion in the Senate on Wednesday. And the Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi resigned on Thursday to President Sergio Mattarella, who accepted his resignation and said he will remain in office while the government crisis is resolved.
President Sergio Mattarella has received Prime Minister Mario Draghi this morning at the Palazzo del Quirinale. Draghi, after reporting on yesterday's discussion and vote in the Senate, reiterated his resignation and that of the government he leads. The President of the Republic took notice of this. The government is in place to conduct current business as usual.
Now we address other topics. Russia has resumed natural gas supplies through the Nord Stream undersea pipeline, according to the pipeline operators. The pumping of gas had been interrupted on July 11th when Nord Stream 1 underwent a regulatory maintenance. The company announced that gas deliveries will continue at about the same level as before the maintenance, which corresponds to about 67 million cubic meters per day, or about 40% of its maximum capacity. The resumption and decrease in deliveries raises fears in European countries about a possible total cutoff of Russian supplies as the winter approaches. In this regard, the European Commission proposed to its member states to reduce the gas consumption by up to 15%. Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, presented on Wednesday a gas savings plan that envisages a voluntary reduction in consumption. Although 11 countries in the bloc have already activated an early warning on gas supplies, von der Leyen said a possible crisis of fuel will affect the whole of the European Union. In response to the accusations after the reduction of the Russian energy supplies, the Russian President Vladimir Putin stressed on Tuesday that the state energy company Gazprom has always fulfilled its obligations and intends to continue to do so.
Russia is blackmailing us. Russia is using energy as a weapon. And therefore, in any case, whether it is a partial, major, or total cutoff of Russian gas, Europe has to be prepared.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met with his Hungarian counterpart Peter Szijjártó in Moscow on Thursday to discuss energy security. The top diplomats gathered in the Russian capital to discuss a wide range of bilateral issues, from energy to an industry to the healthcare, food and space exploration. Szijjártó stated before he arrived in Moscow that one of the main purposes of his visit was to deal with Foreign Minister Lavrov possible ways to increase energy supplies to Hungary. Lavrov, for his part, said that both nations were increasing economic cooperation despite the Western sanctions because of Russia's special military operation in Ukraine. Syrian government announced the termination of diplomatic relations with Ukraine in full exercise of the principle of reciprocity and in response to the decision of the Ukrainian government in this regard. Syrian Foreign Minister Faisal Mekdad stated that the decision is in response to the poor communication of the Ukrainian authorities with his government since 2018 regarding the refusal to renew residency visas to the diplomatic staff of the Arab nation in Kiev. We recall that Ukraine broke off relations due to the Syrian recognition of the self-proclaimed republics of Donetsk and Lugansk. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Sri Lanka's six-time Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe was sworn in on Thursday as the president of the South Asian nation ahead of the forming a unity government. Wickremesinghe took his oath of office at the Parliament complex. Sri Lanka's police chief and the top military brass stood behind the new president as the oath was administered. Official sources said the new leader was expected to form a cabinet not exceeding 30 ministers to steer the country out of its worst economic crisis since gaining independence from Britain. The nation is suffering lengthy power blackouts, shortages of fuel, food and medicines for months. Public anger over the hardships boiled over when tens of thousands of protesters stormed the home of the then president, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, forcing him to step down. The Moroccan Association for Human Rights released a report putting the death toll from last month's attempt by hundreds of people to cross the border between the North African Kingdom and the Spanish enclave of Melilla higher than the official government tally. The human rights group said at least 27 people, mostly from Sudan, South Sudan and Chad, died in the attempt, with that number likely to rise as many more suffered severe injuries and 64 people remained missing. The Moroccan government has previously reported 23 deaths in the June 24th border crossing. The association concluded that Moroccan and Spanish authorities used smoke bombs and tear gas to disperse the asylum seekers who had gathered at the Barrio Chino crossing area, which separates the Moroccan city of Nador from Melilla, leading to many dying of asphyxiation.
Other violation is the cruel, inhuman, degrading treatment of human dignity that we notice in the videos released on social media of those events from June 26, which is the beating of the injured by Moroccan security forces. There is also another violation, which is the rapid deportation practiced by Spanish authorities. 100 asylum seekers crossed the fence, but the Spanish authorities returned them. The Spanish authorities saw the violence that was practiced on the migrants by the Moroccan authorities, although it put them in danger when they handed them over to the Moroccan authorities.
Indonesia's National Search and Rescue Agency reported on Thursday that at least 9 bodies have been found after a ferry sank off the coast due to bad weather. The KM Chakaya Arafah capsized in waters off Indonesia's Ternate Island on Monday evening, prompting a search and rescue operation for 13 missing people. The Ternate Search and Rescue Agency said in a statement that the rescuers found 4 bodies on Wednesday evening and 5 bodies on the 4th day of the search. 4 people remain missing. The boat was carrying 77 passengers and crew on board as it traveled to nearby Halmahera Island. 64 people were evacuated to a nearby village after the sinking. Local villagers had sailed out in their longboats to help authorities in a vessel with the search operation. The government of China rejected the visit of the Vice President of the European Parliament, Nicolas Beer, to Taiwan and called for a halt to any form of official exchange with the island. At a press conference, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin declared that the meeting of the European delegate with the Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen contributes to the deterioration of relations between Beijing and Europe, seriously violating the principle of one China, encouraging the island's pro-independence rebel forces. The official also stressed that the West must respect Beijing's sovereignty over the island and demanded the European nations do not interfere in the internal affairs of the Asian giant. Now we move on to other topics. Chinese Local Emergency Management Bureau in Jiangsu province confirmed on Thursday that a tornado struck in Liangyungan city, resulting in 1 fatality and 25 injured. The tornado swept through the 11 villages in 4 townships in Liaoyang. According to preliminary investigation, over 2,000 villagers were affected by the disaster, and over 600 houses and about 200 hectares of farmland were damaged. Emergency workers were quick to arrive at the scene, and the injured are currently being treated at nearby hospitals. Relief work is also being carried out in the affected areas. Amid Europe's current heatwave, fires continue to rage in Spain, with hundreds of firefighters battling blazes in the Aragon region. Firefighter brigades are trying to contain, for instance, the fire in the municipality of Ateca, which has been described by the government of Aragon as serious and worrying, for it has been ravaging 14,000 hectares in the Calatayud region since Monday. According to the authorities, 1,700 people from 5 towns had to be temporarily evacuated. So far this year, Spain has lost 193,247 hectares of forest to wildfires, which makes Spain the hardest hit country in Europe, according to data from the European Forest Fire Information System.
I recently went up to the town with a patrol that accompanied us for a walk to see what was there, and it's dantesque. There are no words to explain what we saw.
TeleSUR English continues to grow. Its signal now reaches Europe. You can order it from your cable dealer or tune it yourself. These parameters that you see on screen are in place since July 1st. Quite soon further changes will be implemented for the signals in the Middle East and Africa. Now more than ever, the world connects to us and our stories are heard in other farther away nations. This news multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and our faithfulness to our audience. So we have come to the end of this news brief, but remember you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.